and welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on MTV that likes to do a cha-cha real smooth. Cha-cha again. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge Season 41, Vets and New Threats, The Reunion Part 1, aka Episode 20. Here in this reunion episode, we get to see rookies and veterans all reunite to answer for what they have said or done on this past season of The Challenge. We have our host for this season's reunion, and that is Devin Simone, who also hosts the Challenge Official podcast. Now, the way that this video and recap is going to be, I'm not going to go through every single point. I'm not going to go over every single thing somebody has said, and I'm not even going to go in chronological order. Instead, I watched the reunion, I took notes, I rearranged the notes in order of what we talked about most, all the way down to stuff that was kind of mentioned but don't really have to go into all that detail, / conversations that end halfway through because they wanted to leave off on a cliffhanger to get people excited and to tune in for part 2 of the reunion next week. I labeled this first discussion point as just simply Olivia, as she was featured a lot in this first part of the reunion. They first talk about the final and how Olivia won while she was pregnant. They gave her a baby gift of a onesie that says Future Challenge Champion. Realistically, her baby is already a challenge champion. So Devin had a really good comeback for Theo when he pointed that out, and she's like, well, Theo, that's actually for you. Which, can I just say, I think Theo has more of a chance fitting in that baby onesie than he does ever becoming a challenge champion given his performance in this season's final. Somebody who was critical of Olivia, Bananas, actually gave Olivia her flowers, saying that what she was able to endure on the season, as well as in the final, as well as being pregnant, nobody can take away what she has accomplished and that she is a challenge champion. Now, somebody that Olivia feels was a hater to her was Michaela, and at one point during this reunion, it was brought up about the whole Nany versus Michaela Cedric argument in the bar late in the season. Olivia feels that Michaela had been so judgmental towards Olivia, saying that 90% of Michaela's confessionals was about Olivia in some way, and Olivia feels like her and Michaela didn't play all that different of a game, especially when she betrayed Aviv and Jeremy. Michaela clarifies that she did not betray Aviv and Jeremy. First of all, she wasn't even in an alliance with Jeremy. She only had to deal with Aviv. And that deal had an expiration date, that they would work together in the game, but at some point they both knew that it couldn't be forever, that they were going to have to turn on each other. And Michaela said that that time came, and she just let everybody know that, hey, we should do it. We should vote Aviv and Jeremy into the elimination. Now, Michaela in this moment brings up a really interesting point in that she says that the fundamental difference between her game and Olivia's game is that when Michaela is in alliance with someone and that someone gets into hot water, Michaela would do all that she can to help that person out, either get out of the vote. But when rewatching the season, it felt like Olivia and Theo were mainly looking out for themselves. And if somebody in their direct vicinity was possibly getting voted into elimination, that it felt as though that Olivia and Theo was like, oh, well, thankfully, it's not me and it's you. Which I will say, I did feel that way as well. For example, when Leroy had his big brain plan of throwing out Anissa and Jake as the house vote, but really, once they got to the voting ceremony, they would all vote for Theo, just so nobody would stake a claim. It felt like in that moment when Leroy was like, I'm sorry, Anissa, I have to vote you in, and Anissa came back into the room and was like, well, it sounds like it's gonna be me and Jake. It felt like in that moment, Olivia was like, oops, well, at least it's not Theo or me going in. So sorry, Anissa, but you're gonna have to just deal with going into the elimination. Realistically, Olivia and Theo were always gonna look after each other no matter what. That if you were to get into an alliance with them, you're always gonna be the second, third, or fourth fiddle. That nobody could be their number ones because they were already each other's number ones. And I feel like people understood that, especially in the Biscuit Alliance or the UK Alliance, as it was deemed both. But I kind of agree with Michaela's assessment that maybe they were preying too much at a certain point on other people's downfalls, even in their own alliance, as long as it wasn't Olivia or Theo. Mainly Theo was the one getting voted in over and over again. So I think that was very interesting and a very interesting point. I do think that it is a game. Both are playing their own games, and both of their strategies worked out to get them to the final. It's just that one person was able to win the final while another person got third place, which both are really good and impressive ways to end the season. One final point in this Olivia segment is that Devin asked Olivia, would she have tanked her own game just to get Bananas out? And Olivia said, yeah, kind of, which was pretty funny, and I'm glad that she was honest about it. Speaking of Bananas, his main segment in this reunion part 1 was him, of course, declaring that he is the challenge. This is where Devin asked for a raise of hands of who thinks Johnny is the challenge, where to my surprise, about half the stage raised their hand to say that Johnny is, in fact, the challenge. Now you had some people like Leroy being like, hey, if you didn't raise your hand, you're showing disrespect because this man's the GOAT. This man has given everything to the game and he has put it on his back for 20 plus seasons and he has gotten it to where it is today. Then you have Derek, who's kind of like 1 foot, 1 out, where he's like, yeah, Johnny has done a lot for the show and has got it to where it is today, but at the same time, the challenge isn't just about one person. Honestly, I side with Derek on this one, that yes, Johnny has had a major impact on the challenge, having won the most, being the most decorated, and having a ton of iconic moments. But at the same time, that doesn't entitle him to the king of the challenge or anything like that. Where I think its true legacy and what is deep in its DNA is filled with a lot of different variables, from the OG veterans to the rookies of this season and everybody in between. It's made up of all different shows, from old to new, from canceled to legacy TV shows that are going into its 50th seasons. All the different twists, all the different eras, TJ Lavin and all the different hosts that have come between it. I just don't think the challenge can be pinpointed to one specific thing or one specific person, because if it did, then it would easily crumble when that person or that thing wasn't in the show anymore. Take this season, for example. Johnny Bananas was a major player and a major plot point early on in this season, but he did get eliminated early. Did the show just absolutely unravel when he wasn't there? No, it was still a very compelling, very entertaining show. Now, I'm not saying this to disrespect or disregard anything that Bananas has done over the time of the show. What he has given to the show is valuable. His impact is valuable. But I also think that you can't just have one person be the challenge and that's it. Let's go into the conversation about bad partnerships. We're going to start off with Sydney and Turbo. Sydney mentions that her partnership with Turbo was not the best. She still really enjoyed having Turbo as a partner. He was the best partner for her, she feels, but there was a lot of rocky moments and felt like Turbo was very unfair to her in the sense that she would do a lot of things for him to appease him, getting him tea and all this stuff, but then she would be completely ignored by Turbo when he felt she did something against him, like say hi to Theo or talk to Jeremy or get Jeremy some tea. She states that Turbo would ignore her and not speak to her the entire day as a sort of punishment. Sydney also mentions that Turbo told her not to call home to her boyfriend. Turbo, in his way, tries to say that it is a mere suggestion, that he wasn't like saying you can't and you won't call home, that he was merely suggesting that you shouldn't call home because then you'll feel homesick, your head won't be in the game, you'll be sad, and then your performance will be bad and will be sent into elimination. Sydney and a lot of the cast members don't truly buy that Turbo was suggesting anything, that he was trying to enforce it. It was something that wasn't shown in the edit at all this season, but was heard over social media and then brought up here at the reunion. Somebody else who was brought up about not being a good partner is Gabe. Gabe gets called out mainly for his interactions with his partners over the course of the season, especially when talking about him being partnered up with Michaela, Lekka, Jonna, Naya, and Aviv. Lekka mentions that his tone was very aggressive to the women in the game, that yes, she comes from a sports background, so yelling and aggression can be a part of game or strategy, but she can understand where people would take offense to what he would say and how he would say it. This is where Gabe gets emotional. He does apologize in this moment. He takes responsibility for his actions and has even talked about going to therapy, as when he was watching the show, he saw stuff in him that he never really realized, and so he wanted to go to therapy, get that worked out. Now, there were some pros and cons all throughout this reunion. One very big miss, in my opinion, were these hangnail questions. They only got to 2 during this reunion, where a cast member could walk up to what looked to be a wall, pick up a board that was hanging on the wall, and answer a quote-unquote spicy question, trying to stir up some drama around the cast. Bananas was the first one to get a hangnail question, where the question was, who do you think doesn't deserve to come back onto the show? He said Izzy instantly, because the most notable thing she did on the season was make out with Rogan. A lot of people on the cast did not agree with that opinion whatsoever. Cedric got the second hangnail question, which asked who is the fakest person at the reunion, and he chose Derek C. And a lot of people actually had something to say about Derek, and it feels like possibly there's this level of him not being very authentic, in that maybe he is coming off too positive, too friendly to people, which is interesting because that's how you get to know people and get a good social game, but it seemed like it backfired on him. Dee said the same thing, and Derek tried to deny her, being like, no, I don't think I'm like that, no. And it's like, how are you gonna learn about how people perceive you if you don't take criticisms very well? But if Cedric is saying it, Dee is saying it, and then of course, Turbo was saying that Derek was fake because, again, Turbo would be like, Derek would come up to me and be all nice and buddy and give me compliments and everything. And then in the next moment, he's coming up to me saying that I'm gonna vote you in. He's like, you're fake because you're trying to be my friend and then you're instantly going to vote for me. Now, this leads me into the final segment of this reunion, where it is based on Turbo and all of his arguments and rivalries that he had. Like I just mentioned, in a different segment, Turbo and Derek talked about their beef, but at the very end, it was brought up so that they could have a cliffhanger between CT and Turbo, where Turbo takes out these pieces of paper and he's doing an anagram to call CT a bewitch. And then also in this moment, Turbo calls CT a putty cat. I feel like you can read between the lines. I'm trying to keep this video green, if you know what I mean. CT clearly doesn't like that Turbo is saying all these mean things to him. The volume level starts getting big. The camera angles are changing back and forth, back and forth. We see bodyguards starting to come up on the stage, producers coming up on the stage, and then we are cut off with a cliffhanger as we're going to jump back into the reunion part 2, starting with the CT versus Turbo stuff. I don't know how much further we're going to be going with the whole Turbo versus CT. I feel like we saw a majority of it at the end of this part 1 of the reunion, and what we're going to come back to is that we're going to have them raising their voices. Maybe some producers come up on stage, people will leave to take a 5, and then within the first 5 minutes, everybody will be seated back down, and then Devin will get everybody back on the rails, where she'll ask CT what he felt. We'll move on to Theo and Turbo talking, and then move on to the main course of part 2, which will be the whole Anissa versus Nany and Ashley, as well as who did Anissa call when she got eliminated from the season, and what happened between Anissa and Will. Realistically, this reunion part 1 talked about 90% of what I thought the entire reunion was going to talk about. When this episode was wrapping up, I was like, how can they fill an hour and a half next week when we had already gotten to all the stake claims, the final talk, Michaela versus Olivia, a lot of the banana stuff, the Turbo stuff. Realistically, I was like, this could have been a 2-hour reunion and we could have gotten through everything all in one night and wrapped it up. But overall, I thought that this part 1 was fine. I'm not the biggest fan of reunions. I'm looking forward to next week to hear all the dirty details between Anissa, Will, Nany, and all that stuff that has been posted all about rumors and everything on social media. I'm not really on social media, so I don't know too much about it. So getting to hear it from the source next week will be very, very exciting. But now I want to turn it over to you. What did you think about this reunion? Let me know down in the comment section below. Did you find it entertaining or did you find it boring? Let me know that down in the comment section below, as well as who do you think was the best dressed? Let me know that as well. I now want to give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you, and thank you to everyone who's watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really soon with more Challenge 41 content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.